What up, Homedawgs? My name is Gokey Gamer, coach of the Milwaukee Meta Champs, and welcome to the final week of the CMM Mudkip Division regular season, where our final opponent is going to be none other than Frito, coach of the Welshians. First off, I wanted to give a massive shout out to my opponent, as well as the moderators of the league, for letting us postpone this battle past the initial deadline. Our schedules just didn't line up during the entire week, and initially my opponent was going to give me a forfeit win if that was alright with the mods, but that just didn't feel right to me due to the fact that if we win, we're guaranteed playoffs, and if we lose, we're out. This battle really mattered in terms of the playoff standings. Thankfully, both my opponent and the moderators were willing to let us reschedule, so we were able to get this battle done. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about my opponent's team. Whap! Frito's team consists of Gouging Fire, Petrorunt, Quaquavel, Jolteon, a Diancie that can turn into a Fairy, Water, and Fighting type, Noivern, Superior, Mamoswine, a Meloetta that can turn into a normal Psychic and Fairy type, and finally a Bronzong to round things out. If y'all have been a fan of this channel for a while, you'll know just how scary Terra Diancie and Petrorunt can be, and combine that with insane threats like Jolteon, Quaquavel, and Gouging Fire, and we've got a team that could easily claim lives if we're not careful. However, while this team might have the offense, I think we've got the defense to keep them on the back foot. After seeing how well DEOXYS Defense and SPECTRIER did last week, I decided to bring the two of them again. Combined with Trick Room and DD, Unaware Fizz Def Clefable, and Taunt plus Jungle Healing Zarude are here to either support the Conkeldurr or SPECTRIER endgame. If you'd like a more detailed team breakdown, then consider checking out my Ko-fi page, where you'll find 8-minute team breakdowns for all of my battles, as well as receive access to battles early if you become a member. Any support that you're able to give is always immensely appreciated. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and head to the battle. Hey everybody, so unfortunately the audio when I recorded this battle came out weird. I don't know what was going on with the microphone. I think there was something wrong with one of the cords, but unfortunately the battle just had weird audio. I figured it wasn't salvageable, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to do a post-commentary of this, and that's all we're going to do. So I apologize for the post-commentary, but I promise you guys are still going to enjoy this regardless, because this game was wild. So immediately what I see here, my opponent bring, we see Diancie, Bronzong, Superior, Gouging Fire, Meloetta, and Noivern. I'm immediately terrified to see both of the Terra Captains here, because both of them are extremely scary. I am glad not to see Petrorunt, although that means the Covert Cloak on both DEOXYS and my Indeedee are not as useful, which is not great. And that means Superior with Glare could be annoying, things like that. In hindsight, maybe I could have brought like the Lumberry on my DEOXYS Defense, that might have been smarter. In terms of what I'm glad not to see, again, the Petrorunt not being there is great. The Quaquavel not being there either is also very massive. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. So I actually opt to lead off with my DEOXYS. I'm hoping to either get a knockoff off or set up spikes or do something like that. I am afraid of a Superior lead, but I'm like, you know what? I think this is worth it. I'm just going to do this. So my opponent ends up leading the Superior like I feared, and I'm immediately fearing, okay, this thing is going to set up sweep in my face. I'm very terrified. My Clefable is more on the physical side, because of the fact that I'm scared of Quaquavel and a Gouging Fire sweep. I do debate going into it here, but then I'm like, you know what? I think I can just go into King Louie. I have Jungle Healing specifically, mainly for Glare Superior. I was also there for Petrorunt just in case, but I'm also never switching in this thing against the Petrorunt. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. We just see a taunt here, and then funnily enough, I remember I actually tried to go for a taunt to prevent the Glare, and that ends up failing because I'm like, oh wait, I can't click taunt because I'm taunted. Whoopsie daisy. So I think here I actually click U-turn. And here you'll see I try to go for taunt, and it's very funny. Yeah, here's where I go for taunt. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, my bad, I'm a silly boy. So I go for U-turn. Yes, I do go for U-turn. Unfortunately, the Superior does outspeed me and goes for Glare, which isn't fun, but thankfully, we don't get paralyzed here, and I can just go for a U-turn. And also, thankfully, once again, I also do have Jungle Healing. This reveals that it is a bit bulkier. Like, there is some bulk to it, but it is also mostly offensive. So that's also very good intel to know, and now I have to figure out what Pokemon do I want to send in here to just pick up this KO against this thing. The only Pokemon that outspeeds is SPECTRIER, but the SPECTRIER won't be able to KO, or if it does, it's a roll, so I actually go into Big Top here. The reason being, Big Top can tank any hit that this thing wants to throw at me. I can Terastallize if I want to, I can just pick up the KO if I want to. I immediately get the Guts Burn, so it can't paralyze me, which is very valuable. And while it is leftovers, this thing can still, like, Conkeldurr can still be a really, really solid matchup here. Especially because, like, even, like, Noivern's not going to enjoy tanking a Drain Punch from a Guts boosted Conkeldurr. They also have to keep in mind I could be Terra fighting, and if I am Terra fighting, something dies. This is a big reason why I thought Petra Run was coming. I thought it was coming specifically for Conkeldurr. So the fact that it's not here is really amazing for me. So I'm able to just go for this Drain Punch on whatever wants to come in, and whatever wants to come in is not going to enjoy it at all. Even the likes of Diancie and Meloetta are both neutral to fighting because of their typings. Bronzong is also neutral because of the Steel Psychic, so there is no switch in for this Drain Punch. They do fire off a Leaf Storm, which is a bit scary, but all I care about at this point is getting this thing in range of SPECTRIER, and it just straight up dies, which is awesome too. I can't remember if that was a roll or not, but the fact that Conkeldurr was just easily able to pick up the KO on Superior, now Superior is no longer a threat. This thing's out on the field. If we can Terra if we want to, if we see something like the Meloetta or the Noivern, we can do whatever we want, and that's obviously very nice. Now that the Petra Run isn't here, and also the Quaquable's not here either, I do kind of wish I was Terra Steel, but that's fine. Terra Steel specifically for this thing would be amazing. This thing in general is very terrifying, but I'm like, okay, crap, what do I do here? So, once again, I go into Clefable as a setup sweeper potential, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that because I want to save my Clefable for the Gouging Fire, because I'm expecting the Gouging Fire to be a more offensive set, and if it is, then Clefable's my best answer into that at this point, especially since my Zarude is paralyzed. However, I do decide to go into Clefable because I'm like, okay, Diancie shouldn't be able to two-shot me at all, unless it's like max special attack modest, which it could be, but I genuinely don't think that's the case. We do immediately see the Terastallization, which makes me happy to know that Meloetta isn't going to be the Terramon, and we are going to see Terra Fairy Diancie. The best Terra on Diancie, by the way, by far, and I'm immediately a little bit scared. I'm hoping not to see setup here. I'm hoping not to see hazards. We just see a Diamond Storm, which is the best thing that my opponent could have gone for here, because it's a physical attack. The defense does raise sharply, but that doesn't matter here. I'm like, okay, I can go for Wish Protect here, see what this thing wants to do. Let's go for it. It'll take damage from Rocky Helmet Chip if I opt to stay in, because Draining Kiss makes physical contact, fun fact, even though it's a special move. So that's very exciting, and now we can see, you know, if my opponent wants to switch out, what it wants to do. This is another reason why I thought Petra Run was coming. I thought it was coming for Clefable as well. So Petra Run not being here is massive for Conkeldurr and Clefable. So my opponent actually opts to switch out here, which makes sense, and I'm very glad they did in hindsight. I did have Wish Protect so I could scout to see what this thing wanted to do. We do see Bronzong come in, which now is like, okay, that makes sense that it's the guaranteed switch. I'm like, okay, I can Wish Pass, I can Protect, I can do whatever I want here. Here, I believe what I opt to do is I opt to go into King Louie, because I'm like, this is going to be my best opportunity to get rid of the paralysis, which is going to be extremely valuable for Meloetta in particular. So I'm going to go ahead and switch into Zarude to try to get some of the paralysis off of me. So I actually managed to switch out. I'm hoping to see this thing switch out. I go into Zarude here, and I'm hoping they don't double into Noivern. They do double, and they do go into Noivern, which was very unfortunate for me. We're going to see Specsavers, which, by the way, is a great nickname for a Noivern. I love it. And they are going to see the Frisk, and they are going to find out I'm holding the black glasses. So that is not a great situation for me to be in, especially because now my Dragon switch-in is chipped, and I'm not having a good time. However, I do decide to go into Indeedee here because of the fact that I am max HP, max def. This is my best opportunity to get this thing in, and maybe I can fire off a Trick Room and start doing stuff. So I go into the Maid here. I'm expecting like probably a Hurricane. If a Hurricane miss occurred here, that would be phenomenal. The battle got weird, which makes sense. We are just going to see a U-turn, which does a decent chunk of damage, going to 238 HP. Does a decent chunk, not quite half, obviously, and we are going to see them U-turn out. Again, not a great situation. We are currently a bit more on the back foot, so we do have to keep that in mind. So we're going to see a new Pokemon hit the field, and it's going to be the Meloetta. So I'm like, okay, this is fine, I think. You know, like, I'm a max the def wall. Yes, the psychic terrain is up, but I should be fine. I can just fire off a Trick Room, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because I want to be able to, like, Healing Wish or Baton Pass or like, do something here to where I can just easily swap out. Also worth noting, Psychic was very free here as a Bring, as the only move I brought, because of the fact that there is no Dark type. So that is very nice, too. So we're going to see a Psyshock here. Bada bing, bada boom. And we die to a crit. This was brutal. Later on, I would figure out that this Meloetta is actually choice specs, but that crit, I think even with the specs, that crit still mattered. It was not fun, and I'm realizing now, like, this is a massive blow, especially for, like, DEOXYS defense and SPECTRIER in particular. So I actually decided to go into DEOXYS defense now because I'm like, okay, I can wall this thing, you know, like, this is my best, like, Psychic switch in. At this point, I don't know its specs, obviously, because of the crit. I think I would have been able to figure out it was specs depending on what happened with the like, if I had lived that role. Because every single time I should have easily lived that role, even with the Psychic Terrain up. So now I'm like, okay, they're probably going to switch out here. If I had to guess, I can take anything that this thing wants to throw at me if it is not Specs, and if it is Specs, it's locked into Side Shock. So I can set up Spikes here if I want to. I can go for Knockoff. They're going to want to save this thing if it is Specs, so I decide to go ahead and start Hazard stacking, specifically because my opponent does not have Hazard removal in this game. So if I can set up Hazards here, get things open for SPECTRIER, that's amazing. So here, they end up swapping out, and then they go into Bronzong. We manage to get a layer of Spikes up against the Bronzong, and at this point, I'm like, okay, they're going to Hazard stack against me, and there's not really much I can do about it, but at this point, I'm kind of okay with that. Not much of my team is really weak to the rocks anyways. In fact, I don't even think any of my team is weak to the rocks. In fact, yes, no, none of my team is weak to the rocks. It'd be more of a nuisance than anything else, so I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this thing staying in against me. This gives me another free layer of Spikes. I'm going to Hazard stack as much as I can. Especially because, again, if there's nothing that's heavy-duty booties, that's going to be phenomenal for the rest of my team. And we do see the rocks here, which I'm like, okay, that's not ideal, but it's fine. But here I can just set up a third layer of Spikes and call it a day. As I set up my third layer of Spikes, my opponent actually ends up going for Shadow Ball, which does diddly squat. So now I know that this thing has Shadow Ball, it has the Spike, or it has Stealth Rocks, I should say. It probably has a Steel move, and there's a decent chance it has Body Press. So then pretty much know more or less the full move set. So I'm like, okay, I can just go for Knockoff here. It's probably Rocky Helmet, but that's fine. I can recover next turn. Recover is a very, very free button click here. I do have to keep in mind, again, that I am a negative speed nature, but I do have enough speed to where I can still outspeed DEOXYS naturally, which is very important to keep in mind. So we do see the swap here, which I'm more than okay with. We're going to see Gentle Gareth come in, which is going to be the Gouging Fire. I'm immediately fearing the booster energy here, and sure enough, we are going to see the booster energy. I'm like, oh crap, it's going to be attack. Or, yeah, it's going to be attack, pretty much. And we see defense, actually. So I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this. This obviously does no damage whatsoever, but I immediately Psychic Noise because of the fact that it's like, if this thing tries to set up in my face, we see the substitute, which I did not think about here in this particular case, but as it turns out, it doesn't even matter, because Psychic Noise goes through substitute. Absolutely massive, and this thing can no longer heal in front of me. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can try to knock this thing out as fast as possible. Maybe they won't even get the chance to click Morning Sun. And we start seeing the Dragon Dance. I am really scared at this point that this thing is going to just start clicking buttons against me. I do have Clefable in the back, but I can't switch in Clefable reliably on an attack. I need this thing to be in Rocky Helmet's range, and I need this thing to not rest up in my face. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I think this might be in range of a Rocky Helmet. And that also reveals that they are no longer prevented from healing. We are slower than this thing, which means I have to go into Pinky. If they go for the Morning Sun, it's fine. If they go for Dragon Dance, it's fine. If they go for the attack, ideally it's fine. And then hopefully I can go into a different Pokemon and maybe chip something down. Again, this is a terrifying situation for me to be in. It's a +1, it outspeeds everything. If this thing KOs my Clefable, it's basically over. So I end up switching into Clefable because of the fact that I am unaware boosted, and I'm praying to God that we can either KO this thing later on, or that it doesn't go for healing, and it actually goes for Dragon Dance again. So this is the best case scenario for me. I'm thinking maybe they thought maybe the SPECTRIER was scarfed, or that there wasn't going to be a guaranteed KO. If I could have just stayed in click Psychic Noise versus this thing, but in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't do that. We are going to see the Heat Crash here, which is going to do a lot of damage, but because we're unaware, it does not KO, and I can Wish Protect on the next turn if needed, which was my plan. And they end up going down to the Rocky Helmet. This was really funny to see, by the way, the fact that the sub technically fainted, quote unquote. So that was very funny. But at this point, now I have to make a decision. Okay, if Bronzong is coming in, what do I do here? Do I protect on the Bronzong? Do I switch out against the Bronzong? What do I do here? How useful is Clefable at this point? Keep in mind, there is still a Noivern. The biggest threat that Clefable was here for is dead. There's no other Pokemon, really, that this Clefable is here for. It is great Noivern fodder, but Noivern is actually what switches in here. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. The Frisk doesn't matter here. I'm okay with it. I just immediately decide, okay, I'm going for Protect here. If this thing, the most that this thing can do to me is a Hurricane, I'm going to Protect. I'm going to make sure I get my HP back. So what ends up following through here, they go for Hurricane, we Protect. Yay. So what ends up happening here, we go back and forth for a while. I won't lie. We end up going back and forth here with Wish Protect shenanigans because I'm like, okay, I should always be able to take a Hurricane. Eventually I find out that yes, it is confirmed, I can always take a Hurricane. So I go for the Wish here and Protect because I realize there's not really much more else here that wants to switch in against the Hurricane. The mon that would want to switch in against the Hurricane is dead. I do value Clefable here, so I'm just going to try to Wish and hope for a miss. We go see the Hurricane, they land the Hurricane. It does deal a decent chunk of damage, but I realize I can pretty much heal that back up for free. But then we get confused. And I'm praying to God, please, Clefable, don't hit yourself with confusion. Please do not hit yourself with confusion. That'd be great. And thankfully, Clefable clutches up and doesn't hit themselves in confusion. I'm going to go ahead and spoil things a little bit. We do eventually break out, I think, the next turn, and we just spam Wish Protect for a while. So, yeah, I'm going to speed through this for a while. As you can see, we're still recovering HP. We're doing more and more work here. Eventually, they do swap out back into the Bronzong. I can't remember what turn this was on. I think this was on a Protect turn. So we see the U-turn, which I'm like, okay, that's fine. Actually, that looks like it was probably a Wish turn. So we see also Rocky Helmet Chip, which is absolutely massive, once again, for the likes of SPECTRIER, for the likes of Conkeldurr if I can Terra and live and attack. Absolutely massive. And we are going to see the Bronzong come in. I believe here, maybe I went for a knockoff this turn. I don't actually know. I do just go for a Wish, but I'm like, okay, I'm at full HP with Clefable. Clefable is fine. I can immediately Wish past this. I can try to get Zarude back up again. Even if Noivern comes back in, at this point, it's still okay, in my opinion, because I'm like, I can just... It's fine. It's fine. It's not ideal, but it's fine. So we switch out into King Louie here. I'm hoping to see an attack. That's the best case scenario. I'm really hoping not to see a swap. So we are going to see the Pointed Stones dig in, and we do see the double, and I'm like, oh crap. Noivern is going to come in here, and it's actually not. It's Meloetta. I'm like, this is very interesting. Sure, we'll go with that. I'm not sure what my opponent was thinking here. I'm not sure if this was a misclick. I'm not sure if this was a read that they were trying to make, but I'm like, okay, this is fine. I'm going to Jungle Healing on this turn to get rid of this paralysis, because this Meloetta should never be able to KO me, and we should always outspeed unless it is Scarfed. And we just see a U-turn here. It's going to do a decent chunk of damage, but I'm like, again, this is fine with me. This is also going to take a lot more Hazard Chip when it comes in. I'm fully expecting the Noivern to come in, and I'm praying to God that we can get this Jungle Healing off, because that would put me in a phenomenal position here. Basically restoring me to near full HP. We're actually going to see the DEOXYS come in. I'm thinking to myself, this is kind of crazy. The Noivern is not switching in here. We fire off our Jungle Healing, which is great. I can freely go for a U-turn next turn to see if my opponent ends up switching out, because I'm like, there's no way this thing has Baton Pass, because, yeah. I could go for a taunt here, but I'm like, I still value this thing in this matchup because Meloetta is still alive. I'm going to U-turn out, and I'm going to switch into probably like my Clefable or something like that. Or even DEOXYS can come in here as well, because of the fact that, you know, again, Clefable, I don't need Clefable anymore. DEOXYS did its job a lot, and I can prevent this thing from really setting up in my face. We are going to see the Rocky Helmet here, which does suck, and I'm like, okay, that's annoying to deal with, but we'll work with that. So here I go into Alan the DEOXYS defense, and ladies and gentlemen, this is a big reason why I wish we got to keep this recording. I'm going to go ahead and just let this footage speed up and play through it as I do a recap as to what happened, because holy crap, this section was wild. So long story short, DEOXYS goes crazy once again. Eventually, I learned that this DEOXYS full moveset is Draining Kiss, Moonblast, Diamond Storm, and Spikes, so it doesn't have any setup potential, and I can just wall DEOXYS with Recover and Psychic Noise. This also removes a lot of pressure off of Clefable because I don't have to worry about having to counter a setup sweeping set with Unaware anymore. So after going back and forth a considerable amount, eventually my opponent decides to switch DEOXYS out, and that's where we'll continue the rest of the commentary. So here is where my opponent eventually swaps, which kind of surprises me, but not really. My opponent can still come in on a hazard stack, but again, this battle is going so extremely well, and at this point, low-key, I might even just straight up have the match. We do see that this thing gets chipped a little bit, it's prevented from healing, which is always nice. I believe we know that this thing still isn't lefties. I could switch into Zarude here, but I'm like, there's not much point into that at this point. DEOXYS did more than did enough work here, weakening down all the Pokemon that are grounded. You know, basically neutering DEOXYS completely with Psychic Noise, which was not even a thing I majorly thought about. I mainly thought about it for the Petra Runt in case the Petra Runt came. But I'm like, this is more than okay with me. So I do go for the knockoff here. They go for Hyper Voice, which we barely managed to live, by the way, and this is where I find out that it is Specs. This Meloetta can no longer switch in, which means if I let this thing pick up the KO versus me, then that means SPECTRIER can come in and just start doing stuff. If, like, literally, again, like, I can do whatever I want with SPECTRIER at this point. If they pick up a KO versus this thing, then we get a attack boost. If they opt to switch out, then something else is going to take a very heavy-hitting Dark Pulse, and we're just in a phenomenal position at this point. So, unfortunately, I do decide to let DEOXYS defense go down. Again, though, phenomenal work this game. Literally the MVP of this game, because now we can switch into SPECTRIER. I can literally Calm Mind this thing. I could also go into Zarude if I wanted to as well, but then I realized, like, again, SPECTRIER has no reason to not come in here. We can just Dark Pulse, pick up a KO, and call it a day. I could also Calm Mind, I could also Substitute, but at this point I'm like, you know what, I think the game is pretty much over at this point. Like, yes, Noivern could still be a problem, but I can handle Noivern if I need to. I still don't know if it's Scarfed at this point as well, so I'm like, you know what, it's fine. I'm going to Dark Pulse. If Noivern wants to switch in, it'll die to a Shadow Ball. We do pick up the KO versus Meloetta, and I'm like, the only saving grace from my opponent's side is going to be the Noivern at this point, because all that's left is a Bronzong that dies to a Shadow Ball, and a Diancie that's going to die on, like, basically on switching, because then I can just fire off another Shadow Ball, and SPECTRIER is just going to go nuts. So eventually Noivern comes in, obviously, and I'm like, this might be a roll, so this might be a roll that I have to risk here, but at the same time, Noivern it will do a lot of damage to me, but I don't even think that it could KO me, so I think it might be a roll. So I Shadow Ball regardless, and I'm hoping that we get the roll in our favor as opposed to them getting the roll in their favor. I'm also hoping that it is not Scarf, because I don't know if it is, well, I was thinking about it being Scarf, but then I obviously it switched moves earlier when it went from Hurricane to U-turn. So we fire off the Shadow Ball, we managed to outspeed, because obviously we outspeed this thing naturally, and we do pick up the KO. This seals the deal for us, and the SPECTRIER ends up switching, like KOing the Bronzong as you see here, and then eventually KOing the Diancie, winning us this game, 4-0 victory, SPECTRIER going nuts, but only because of the help of all the other Pokemon on this team, putting in so much work. I was so proud of this battle. This is genuinely probably the best I've played in this entire league, and this is definitely, I feel like, one of my best battles personally. So I'm definitely adding in my Gokey's Best Battle playlist, which I actually need to add some more videos to, because I haven't been doing that because I keep forgetting about that, but that's besides the point. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to future me to discuss the final standings of the playoffs, because guess what? We made playoffs, baby! Let's go! So with a solid 4-0 victory for us, we have more than secured our spot in the playoffs. We ended up going 4-4 with a +3 differential, having the most differential out of the other 4-4 teams, and even having more differential than the number 4th placement Maki, who conveniently enough we're actually going to be taking on in the quarterfinals. The way that the playoff standings in this league works is quite simple: randomization. It just so happened that we're going to be taking on none other than the Gen 8 Pokemon only team, which I'm extremely excited about. For those of you interested in the stats, fun fact, SPECTRIER is number 4 out of 164 Pokemon in terms of kills, gaining 12 kills, died 6 times, resulting in a +6 differential. While the differential itself isn't the most impressive, I won't lie, I might have underestimated SPECTRIER, although I personally still think that it's not because SPECTRIER by itself is a threat, but rather the team it's on is what makes or breaks this Pokemon, as we've seen with DEOXYS defense these last 2 weeks. After the first few weeks, Conkeldurr kinda took a backseat, but still has shown impressive prowess, ranking number 21 on the board with 7 KOs, 4 deaths, and a +3 differential. Some other noteworthy accomplishments are Vikavolt at number 38, DEOXYS defense and Swampert both having an equal number of KOs and deaths, Clefable never actually dying anytime it was brought, and unfortunately our lowest ranking member being Colossal, but even then Colossal still has a KO and is only ranked at number 115. Still rather impressive in my opinion. I won't say my full thoughts on the team until the end of this playoffs journey, but I can definitely say this was one of the most intriguing teams I've ever drafted, and while it took me a while to figure out how to use this team, I feel like these last 2 weeks have been vital in me figuring out roles for each members to fill, and how important each and every mon is. I hope you all are excited to watch the quarterfinals, because I'm extremely stoked to have our game. Once again, a massive shout out to Frito for being willing to take an extension. The link to their channel and their side of the battle, if they upload it, will be linked down below. And also a massive shout out to the playoff coaches and the moderators for putting the playoffs on hold to allow this game to happen. It feels good knowing that I made it into playoffs because I earned my way there. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Also, please consider checking out my Ko-fi page if you haven't already. And now, I'm going to go ahead and head on out. Peace out, mates!